Where were you when you felt most vulnerable and why? Why?
Why? Because I wasn't in control. If I'm doing a cesarean section on a cow, I'm in control. Whereas with this, my wife could have died. The mind is like a parachute. If it's not open, it won't work. Just because everybody agrees on something doesn't mean it is necessarily correct. They are not inherently evil. They are just very good businessmen. Yeah, there we go. How
Okay.
are you?
Hey, my friend.
Oh my God, I haven't seen you for a long time.
Technology.
How are you? How are you, man?
Good. Good. I'm so glad I was actually so happy to see on the schedule. And here he is. He's rubbing his hair while I have no hair.
Oh, let's not have the hair conversation. I haven't. Yeah, I don't look in mirrors these days because I work from home.
I think that we should start with the hair conversation because
Oh, let's start with
I'm
the hair
quietly
conversation.
I'm quietly trying to remember when it was when I could actually do that. So there you go. I must say it is convenient to have this, and I save some
Yeah,
money
yeah,
on hairdressers, but then I have to buy hats, right? So it just kind of evens out, I think.
yeah. I guess. I
S-
guess. Um,
So listen, I am so glad that we are here.
yeah,
And instead of me trying to introduce you and read a little bio, which
yeah.
I don't like doing,
No, we'll just
I
jump straight in. Yeah.
well we'll jump straight in.
Oh,
But I was this morning, I was actually just really curious. What does AI think of Dr. Nick Thompson? And AI said Dr. Nick Thompson is a quiet rebel. So, so quiet rebel. Who is
yeah.
hiding behind the quiet rebel? I'm super curious because whatever we found on AI is always a little bit of mystery how it got to it. So, who is Dr. Nick Thompson? Tell me.
Okay. Well, if we that's the first time I've ever started an interview on the quiet rebel, but I think it's my nature. Is I do have a rebellious nature. If everybody's walking that way, I always think, I wonder what's that way. You know, that's kind of my nature. Even before medicine was to be a little bit different. When I was a kid, I used to dress kind of quite a bohemianly, not like everybody else. When I went for my interview at Edinburgh, everybody was there and they were saying, yes, I want to be a vet and what have you. So I said, well, I'd like I'd like to do some research. So I immediately asked about the intercalated honours, which was part of the program that they offered, which saved my life actually. But back in the day when I was just a pre-graduate, I was asking about that because I thought that that would be a little bit different. But it's interesting that one of the reasons in my proto mind was to think, I know that I'm going to be doing something different when I actually get into my career proper, and therefore I wanted to have some real scientific background behind me and some letters after my name, so that if people came to attack me for homeopathy, because that's kind of what I thought I would be doing. I knew I was going to be doing something alternative. So if I was going to look at homeopathy or acupuncture, or I don't think I was thinking about nutrition, but that was probably because it was part of my DNA. I wanted to be able to justify it. I almost thought about doing a PhD at one point, but I hated working in the laboratory. I love sitting back in the old days before AI and all these amazing things. I used to absolutely love. I would go down to the library every day and spend 16 hours a day, and you just sit with a reference book and you'd look down the you'd sit with an article and then you'd look down the references and go, oh my god, that's a wonderful reference, and then you'd have to walk across this vast library, go and get another reference book to go and read that article, and you say that is fascinating, and you find another, and I would do that all day, every day for weeks and weeks and weeks. And that was something that my intercalated honors did for me. It actually allowed me to get a taste for scientific knowledge and scientific, what we understand, what we don't understand, and how we communicate that. I think scientists generally communicate very, very badly. And so
Mhm.
I've probably gone a little bit too far the other way, being a quiet rebel, in that I try and dumb is the wrong word. I try and bring oversimplify. Yeah, if there's a
Mhm.
concept,
Mhm.
I absolutely try and get it across to my clients so
Mhm.
that they
Mhm.
really understand. I think it's really important for
Mhm.
clinicians. I'm sure you agree, but maybe there are some who don't. I want the people, even if they've got zero scientific physiological knowledge, to be with
Yeah.
me because of the
Yeah.
images that I can share with them. You know, if we're talking about mitochondria, if we're talking about chi, if flowing in the body, if we're talking about homeopathic remedies, I use the princess and the pea as an example. I like to just
I'm
get
curious about that
ideas
one.
across. Say again?
I'm curious about the Princess and the Pea and homeopathy because, as you know, I've been also educated in homeopathy, and
Yeah.
it's all really interesting. So it seems like you're kind of like if you were like living maybe 400 years back, you'd be exploring the seas and you'd be just kind of like
Yeah.
looking what is beyond the horizon. And
You know
I
what?
can see that you've taken the medical field, the veterinary field, and you've always looked beyond the horizon. And we're kind of the same vintage, but
Yeah.
I see the difference in the fact that you were actually growing up with holistic medicine and homeopathy in the household. Is
Yeah.
that right? Like you
Yeah.
seem to have been, the first holistic vet in many ways, like at least in the UK and probably in the world, like where you just kind of embrace something that we were just kind of finding out, like maybe a decade later. So how did
Yeah.
it happen?
Well,
Like how? What is
sure.
what is the background?
Yeah, I don't think I was the first by any means. I stood on the shoulders of giants. People like Francis Hunter was a homeopath in the UK. There was Chris Day, Dr. Chris Day, who was here.
Yes,
Richard Pitcairn.
yes,
Um,
absolutely.
I've been looking at some of his early work. I'm not sure where he's going with his new work, but he did some great work in the back in the old days. I don't think there's anything. There's such thing as new ideas. There are just people just take an idea and they just shift it, shape shift it a little bit so that it fits with their generation,
Hmm.
perhaps. But I did grow up in a holistically minded household before holistic was even a phrase. When I was a kid, I've still got the scar on my hand actually. Can you see? No, you can't see it. Take it from me, guys. There's a little scar on there. I used to get abscesses when I was kind of 11, 12, 13 year old. I used to get little abscesses on my hand, bizarre places. I don't know what it was, but and I was thinking I want some real treatment for this, and my dad just said, "Well, listen, we'll just bathe it to increase the blood supply, to draw out any
Yeah.
material that might be there." And I thought, "Oh God, that's so boring. Why can't we do something dramatic?" But he,
Surgery, like
yeah,
amputation or something.
amputate the limb to save the child. Yeah, you're 11, 12 years old. You want some drama, but actually, my father was a my mother and my father were a massive influence. My mother was pretty rebellious. She was doing homeopathy, or she was interested in homeopathy. My mother was a nurse. My father was a doctor, and my mother she was into health food in the 1970s. One of our good friends would call it death food. Yeah, because it was, I don't know, lentils and organic meat before organic was even a thing. Really clean, well raised, happy meat. She was
Mhm,
and she
mhm.
was very conscious even then. This is just when ultra processed
Amazing.
food was just starting. She was conscious. You're not eating, that supermarket synthetic food before ultra
Hmm.
processed food came along. And so that is, now that I reflect, that's very interesting to talk to you, Peter, as ever. That, yeah, that was the milieu in which I was growing. And then what happened was my dad was a doctor, GP, general practitioner, and they were they thought, oh, we're getting a little bit into a rut. We're doing the same thing every day. And so they did a swap, a house swap, everything swap with a doctor in New Zealand. Okay, so this was
Oh,
took in
wow.
1983, 1984. This is pretty much back in the day, and so we swapped. He says for the camera, we swapped houses, cars, dogs, schools,
But
general practice.
no wife swapping. That wasn't happening,
No
right?
wife
Like it was.
swapping that I know of. Well, my mother was in New Zealand, and the other couple they were in the UK. So I think it was
Okay,
all
okay,
pretty legitimate, courtesy of
okay.
14,000 miles of globe between the two. So and in New Zealand they discovered Rudolf Steiner education, which was a revelation to me. Dad started doing acupuncture, and
Uh-huh.
he was using it for fertility in people. It can be used for
Hmm.
fertility in cows and cats and dogs, obviously. And I like to say he got three couples pregnant when we were
Oh,
in
wow.
New Zealand.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
which is pretty big. I mean, it's kind of funny, but actually, if you think of it, you've taken somebody who is in, a couple,
Infertile.
a woman who is infertile, and you have changed their endocrine system such that they are then able to gestate. That's pretty amazing, really, just with some needles.
That's, yeah, yeah, I know.
It's
I know.
crazy.
Is that crazy?
Yeah,
As you're talking here, I'm just kind of like listening to you. And every time I get together with someone who I feel kind of connection with, and then we
yeah,
start comparing notes and comparing our lives, there's so many
mm,
similarities. Just, you describing the blisters in your hands.
yeah,
I actually had a situation when when was growing up. I was helping my grandfather picking mullein. He had actually these plants of mullein, and he was collecting herbs.
uh-huh,
And I got stung by a bee. And when I got stung a few days later, or maybe a day later, I had these huge blisters on my hand. And
uh-huh,
I remember the situation. And now you're telling me about blisters, and we are all, you know, in a similar vintage of veterinary
yeah,
school, and now we're in holistic and really trying to explore the boundaries of medicine. So,
yeah.
I find it really interesting how the lives go in parallel, and it's almost like, what do you think of the possibility that this whole world as we live in is
Yeah.
actually a simulation, and there is certain programming or certain things that just kind of appear to be so similar? Like I'm quite baffled by this, and I'm sure that if we kind of went deeper and deeper and deeper, and we may have more time to actually connect and communicate as we go deeper, it
Yeah.
seems like we are that there's certain programs like this is category one, category two, or category three, and then
Mhm.
it almost feels like, yeah, you're not gonna be interested in holistic medicine. You'll be really interested in holistic medicine. What do you think of this whole universe? Like, I know that we're kind of derailing a little bit, but derailment is our what we love. So why don't we just do that?
I think that. Well, there's a thing. An amazing, very rebellious scientist in the UK called Rupert Sheldrake, who I'm sure you've come across. Yeah, his
Hmm.
son Merlin Sheldrake wrote an amazing book called Entangled Lives, which you guys absolutely have to read. It's an extraordinary book. Do it on Audible because he narrates the book himself, and he's got the most mellifluous, gentle, lovely, hypnotic voice. So there's my top tip: Entangled Lives by Merlin Sheldrake. Anyway, his father from the generation before talked about morphic resonance, which I haven't examined in detail, but it is a topic that I'm going to do shortly on my Substack, which is maybe another topic. It
Mhm.
it allows me to research areas that I wouldn't otherwise research, because then I can write an article and go quite deep in them. But morphic resonance is basically the idea that there is some kind of connection. I won't say telepathy because that has all sorts of connotations, but there is some connection between populations. For example, you know, when you see starlings who are, when they're in that enormous conglomeration, and they'll kind of weave and bob, 10,000 birds all in synchrony. There has to be something, the idea is that there has to be something going on more than just they're all following each other. Because if you told 10,000 soldiers, right, you guys, you have to move like a wave, just look at the guy next to you and move as one, it wouldn't happen in a million years. And yet the starlings can create these beautiful harmonious shapes with the 10,000. So they're thinking that there's some kind of
Yes. Yes.
harmonious communication between those, and that's called morphic resonance. Or there's another example of monkeys discovering how to open a baboon or something on one island,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
before they were able to move to the other island, they discovered it on the other island, just straight out of the blue. and
Like
and also
half the globe away, right?
half a globe
Something that
away, yeah,
I
or
know,
even
I
20
know. Yeah,
miles
yeah,
away. There's no
yeah,
way that a baboon
yeah,
has, like, gone on
yeah.
a raft from one to the next and said, "Hey guys, look, this is the way to open these nuts." There's some thinking, and also it's actually quite well recognized in science that quite often, and it wouldn't take much googling or AIing to find out instances where the same idea has appeared at a very similar time in
Mhm.
two different
Mhm.
parts, in secret
Mhm.
laboratories, etc. They
Mhm.
haven't been on the phone
Mhm.
overnight.
Mhm.
And the same idea, like, for example, Wallace and Darwin. Yeah, Darwin sat on his idea of evolution for years and years and years and years, and the only reason he published towards the end of his life, because he thought it was, oh, this is too far fetched, or it's going to challenge the church, or whatever it might be.
Yes, yes, yes,
But
yes.
Wallace, this young upstart, came out and with essentially a similar idea, and so Darwin thought, crumbs, I'm going to have to publish now, otherwise he's going to take credit for the fact that I've been working on this for the last 30 years. And to his great credit, and I think Darwin was a very big-hearted guy, he gave credit in the, I believe, I haven't read it yet, in the Origin of Species. He says, I give credit to my colleague and friend, whoever, Dr. Wallace, which is not what people would do these days, I think. So, so they had that, these two guys completely separate, and they had the idea, which was fairly complex. So it's not by chance. Um, and there are many instances of that. So that is morphic
I
resonance.
think that Galileo and Copernicus were in a similar situation, and one of them came out with, with the
Heliocentric
anti-flat Earth.
solar
Yeah,
system.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And the other one actually mentioned that in their on their deathbed, and I can't remember whether it was one or the other, but I know that one of them was persecuted, right? And I think it was
Yeah.
Galileo, right? That
I
was
think Galileo
persecuted.
was also. Yeah.
Copernicus actually was smarter, and he just kind of disclosed it just about when he was just about to die.
Yeah.
And so
Agree. Yeah.
it's so interesting. I'm finding so interesting. But as I'm looking at you and thinking and talking about similarity, I'm gonna do something, which kind of
Okay.
I'll be right back.
Okay. I'm slightly scared now, Peter. I'm sure you're not allowed to leave dead air in proper podcasts,
I was
unless unless your editor gonna
I was well, the editor is gonna edit or not edit, but I was actually thinking that it's kind of cool that you have a hoodie.
oh
So
yeah.
I have this hoodie that was quite cheap, and I found it in the store, and so I'm gonna put a hoodie on too.
Happy to be
Happy to
here.
be here.
Oh, love it. Okay, so we're hoodieing. Yeah,
So
good.
yeah, so there you go.
Okay,
Why
that's
not,
nice.
right?
Yeah, really
Um,
nice. You look like
I
a
just
monk
wanted to.
now. Yeah, you look like a
What
monk.
was that?
You look like a
Yeah,
monk.
we look like I look like a monk. You have the
Yeah,
hair again.
and
Like
I look like I'm
we're
just
going
man
to
from
talk
the
about the
ghetto.
hair often. So you've been kind of talking about raw food a lot and for a
Yeah,
long time, and
yeah.
have been writing articles and teaching people how to feed raw food. And you mentioned in one of these materials that consensus is not evidence, meaning that if yeah, tell me more about it.
Okay, that's great. That's really, really good. So I started this Substack in February, and it's gone. People love it. So people are welcome to jump on. You can find it if you just go to Substack. So and I called it. I was thinking, because it's called Nick Thompson, comma vet, because that's me. But I wanted a kind of a strap line for my practice as well to say, holistic vet, consensus is not evidence. So just to take people through, this is kind of fancy language. Consensus means everybody agrees and therefore it must be right. But actually, what I'm saying is that just because everybody agrees on something doesn't mean it is necessarily correct. Okay, and consensus. So you're talking about Galileo and Kepler. So everybody prior to these two guys, Galileo and Kepler, thought that the sun went around the earth because it's really obvious. You get up in the morning, there's this big yellow orb, and it goes across around the earth and then it sets in the west. It's
Hmm.
obvious. And so
Hmm.
for whatever 3 million years, that's what we thought. The sun, obviously, the Romans thought it was the god of the sun going across, Hermes or whoever, going across the sky. And Kepler and Galileo said, well, actually, guys, if we look a tiny bit closer and we look at the
Hmm.
movement of the stars as well, it actually would fit much better if we had the Earth going around the sun and the moon
Hmm.
going around the Earth and and Mars and Saturn and Jupiter also going around. That would fit what's happening in the sky, but
Hmm.
it's pretty
Hmm.
subtle. And so consensus is, well, obviously the sun goes around the Earth. And evidence is, oh, look, there's Jupiter and it's not going around the Earth, and there's Saturn. Oh, and it looks like it's not going around the Earth either. So maybe they're all going around this
Hmm.
whacking great thing in the same, which is a star, which they didn't know then, and and so therefore they find the answer which is the simplest. The simplest answer is often the real answer. Einstein said, make things as simple as possible and no simpler. And I think that's a
Hmm.
really
Hmm.
that's a good
Hmm.
approach, isn't it? Um,
I like your philosophy of making things simple so everyone can accept them. And I'm a full believer that the medical language is actually often a hindrance, right? Like it's kind of like almost like a curtain that we hide
yeah,
behind. So some people don't understand what we're talking about, or
yeah,
at least, I don't think you're like that. And I like to believe that I'm not like that, but
yeah. No, don't get me
making
wrong.
it simple and making it less separate
Yeah,
from, let's say, the dog parents and so on is so important. And I kind of explain to people that there's an like little conveyor belt in the ear, and if we start over cleaning the ears, that it stops the conveyor belt, right? People
yeah,
actually will remember that, and you
yeah,
seem to be very similar once again in that.
yeah,
I wanted to ask you about raw feeding. Like
yeah,
if you have an establishment, some sort of organization, university, college,
yeah,
saying that raw diet is unsafe,
yeah.
what goes through your mind? Like, are you sad, angry, or frustrated? Like, what goes through your mind?
I'm none of those things. I'll tell you what I am. I'm just thinking, guys, you haven't done your reading. You are not up to speed. Yeah, because the,
Hmm.
the, the, the the background to that is that these big corporations, these candy making corporations, Mars and Nestle, for example, they also make pet food, okay? And they are very good at marketing stuff that's not very good for you as if it's really fabulous. And you know, a Mars a day helps you work, rest, and play, for example. You know, so they're very good at marketing, and they're very good at making very attractive looking products from cheap ingredients and raking in the difference between those two things. And I
Mhm.
believe your vet may think otherwise, but I believe that they have had the opportunity to brainwash us for maybe 50 years, probably more, to make us think um, uh, that feeding ultra processed food to dogs and cats is the right thing to do. Now, on what planet,
Mhm.
Peter, on what
Mhm.
planet is feeding ultra processed synthetic non-biological food healthier than the stuff
Yes.
that Mother Nature, in her wisdom, has sought over billions of years of evolution, in which we have co-evolved to provide for us, you know, called cows and kale and spinach and tomatoes and potatoes and all those
Yeah.
incredible and fish and you know all these amazing, 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 amazing foods, and yet these candy companies come along and go, I know, we will make some food which is going to be much more scientifically formulated for your dog. Try it, you know, and that'll be, you know, $80 a bag, you know.
It's crazy because there's that, like, I don't know any human doctor who would actually say eat more processed food because that's the only good way for you. And
Exactly.
then we have the veterinary science, and I do think that we veterinarians have truly been brainwashed and indoctrinated, right? Like I
Yeah.
think as a community,
Yeah.
I do believe that most vets, pretty much almost all vets, have good intention.
Yeah.
And how did we get to this? And I think that there's this herd mentality as well. Like, we are afraid of being ostracized. We are afraid of being singled out
Yeah.
and you know the outcasts of the community. So I can see, like, when you go to conferences, people are really afraid to kind of stray away from the mainstream. Like, it's almost like we really are like the sheep.
Yeah.
And this kind of industry, the industry really made us their obedient soldiers. And, I'm not sure whether it happens in the UK, but
Yeah.
here in Canada, the reps would come and they would give us, they would buy everyone a pizza or something
Yeah.
like
No.
sushi, and
Yeah.
then they would indoctrinate the whole clinic, right? And
Yeah.
tell them how it is an important part of the business model to sell the processed food. So, do you sell processed food in your practice?
Get out of town.
I was just
No,
wondering.
no, 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 no. No, I
But it
absolutely
is
don't.
harder, right, to make business sustainable because when you don't sell processed food, and I didn't sell it in my practice either,
Yeah.
you basically eliminate one third of the income. So there is like they've been able to plug it into the veterinary system in such a way that it's almost hard
Yeah.
to kind of abandon it.
Yeah, and that wasn't by design. These guys didn't, they are not inherently evil. They are just very good businessmen. And there's been generation after generation of very clever businessmen saying, I know, let's just change the messaging very slightly and we can make another 2% this year. Okay. And you just have 5, 10 generations of clever businessmen, marketing people, and what have you. And lo and behold, it benefits the veterinary profession. And I will agree and I will emphasize what you just said, Peter, that vets, to a man, to a woman, are there to help animals. Okay, it's too hard a job to do, and it's the pay is not great in most situations. You
Mhm.
do it because you want to do some good. You enjoy working with animals and with people, and that's why they are there for the right reason. However, I think vets are trained. They're not educated to think, I think, with great respect, that some vets can think, but we are very trainable. Yeah, you come out of school very young, and you go into vet school, which is kind of similar, and you're just trained and trained and trained day after day, year after year after year, and you come out being very good at what you do, but maybe not very good at thinking broadly. And the food companies come along and go, don't worry about the food thing. We've taken care of it. Look, we've even called the kidney diet. It's got a big K on the front so that you won't forget. Or we'll call it renal diet. Okay, they'll put that on the bag or on the tin. So it just means that when you've got kidney disease, you just reach for the tin. It's like painting by numbers, and they have they have seduced the veterinary profession, who are a little bit naive. I think not their fault. It's just, they're so busy and they're so focused on their job and doing the right thing that they're maybe not as worldly wise as that they might be, and they've been seduced by the candy companies, and the result is that this ultra processed food, which is, there's reams of articles showing that it's just not good for you. It's not good for us. There's loads of material showing that it's not good for humans, and there's a lot of material coming out showing that it's not good for animals as well. But if you think of the billions that these guys make, they've got a lot of influence within education, within the profession, within every realm of veterinary medicine, to just nudge the story in their direction. So then, when people like us come along and go, well, actually, I think nutrition is not that simple. That you just reach for the kidney diet when you've got kidney disease, or you reach for the normal dog diet when you've got a normal dog. That actually there is real food, and feeding real food is simple and massively enjoyable and very healthful, very health giving. And so I'm really comfortable to be a quiet rebel, to turn that ship around just a tiny bit. If people want to feed ultra processed food, fine. But I feel that as vets, and I've said this in the book that I'm writing at the moment, our job as vets is to say these are the pros and cons of ultra processed food, and there are pros and there are cons, and these are the pros and cons of raw, and this is the pros and cons of fresh, lightly cooked foods. On you go. That's our job. It's just to
Yeah,
put the
yeah, yeah.
options on the table, and it's their job to choose what's what. But that's not the conversation which is had these days. It's just, here's a bag of food. See you in a month. You know?
I think that everyone who looks at the label and knows a little bit about nutrition
Yeah.
has to see the problem. It's really hard to actually really understand the mind of a veterinarian who says that kibble is the best food.
It's
Um,
brainwashing. If they
I don't
engaged
really
brain, they would not be able to say that. If they did their reading, they would not be
exactly.
able to say that.
But going back to the candy companies, as you call them, because
Yeah.
I like this term because they're really candy companies.
Yeah.
I really would love to have a conversation with some of the executives or some of the people who formulate these diets and just really honestly
Yeah.
ask them, like, do they really believe that this heavily heated processed food that is full of, wood chips and ingredients that are inferior, do they really believe that it's better? And if they say yes, then I'd like to ask them why, and
Hmm.
then I would definitely question their integrity. But because in medicine, once we can all make mistakes by believing that we are doing something right, and then
Yeah.
realizing, oh, there's new research, we need to
Yeah.
shift.
Yeah.
But I really question the integrity of those people because they must know. And now there's even research in science about, how beneficial raw food is and
Yeah.
how it makes puppies healthier in the long run and
Yeah.
less prone to allergies and less prone to inflammatory bowel disease and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
When they learn this,
Yeah.
it still appears to me that it would be too costly for them to change their mind. So they continue in the same business
Yeah.
until when? Like, are we going to sue them as we sued tobacco companies because they've been lying to us? I think that karma, I do believe that on some level that karma eventually
Yeah,
wins. You know,
agreed.
Václav Havel, the first Czech president, democratically elected Czech president, he said one thing that I try to think of every time I see that something is not changing fast enough. He said, truth will eventually win.
Yeah.
And that's something that I really believe that it's almost like an avalanche or dam that broke through, right? And this is what I'm seeing with natural feeding.
Yeah, I think truth will. I mean, in the Soviet Union, that was just a catastrophe. And I'm not saying anything against socialism or politics. It's basically, it was a system that was propped up artificially
Hmm.
until the
Hmm.
cracks started to show, and then humanity prevailed, and the Berlin Wall and every other wall came down, and the truth came out that people are fundamentally good, and people fundamentally just want to get on with their lives. They want to have their families in whatever the way that manifests, and they want to do good, get on with their neighbours, and and live in some degree of community. But the thing is, that doesn't sell product. What does sell product is when you have a population who is fearful, individualistic, they don't know their neighbors, they rely on Amazon for getting every little bits and pieces rather than going to the town to to pick up their toothpaste and to pick up their, the washers for the tap, which they have to, which their neighbour then comes around to fix. Our society is very different. I'm no sociologist, I'm no anthropologist. I'm just thinking, just that wonderful feeling of community that we used to absolutely thrive on up until possibly 100 years ago, possibly before the Industrial Revolution, when everybody lived in the countryside. Cities were just these, rat infested, small areas that you pretty much avoided because they were so disease ridden. And then machines came along, steam age and what have you, and everybody piled into the cities because they thought that there would be some material gain for them, and human health went way downhill because of that. So I don't know how we got onto that conversation, but it's
Well, you know,
pretty
they say
interesting.
we're surfing beautifully in the conversation.
uh,
Um, I think that I'm not sure whether you've heard the saying that if you want to be healthy, if you want to have your kids healthy and probably dogs, you have to
yeah,
move a cow in your living room. That's the German study that actually studied the farm kids and the
yeah,
city kids, right? And
yeah,
and they now discovered that when you want to prevent allergies, that you actually have to introduce babies the allergenic foods like peanut butter and so on in certain period. And it appears that in puppies the same thing happens, right? Like if you
yeah,
increase variety, that they actually
yeah.
their immune system learns what to resist and what not to. And so it's really cool. Was there any dog that in your career that kind of transformed the way you see medicine or any stories that you have?
Ah, hundreds, the hundreds, such that it's difficult to think of one in particular. However, here you go. I mean, we could trade stories all night, but there's one in particular. Okay, so I used to work. This is a homeopathic story, and if you think, oh, homeopathy is hocus pocus, stick around. This is a good story. So I used to work in Chichester, which is on the south coast of England. Yeah, it's kind of halfway along the bottom of England, and it's quite near Southampton. Southampton is a big naval city, and what happens in Southampton is that they have a 1 o'clock gun. Yeah, because the navy, they love firing cannons. Okay, so at 1 o'clock every day they go and they fire this howitzer, a blank round, into, so that the ships, historically, the ships out at sea could tell that it was 1 o'clock and everybody could synchronize their watches. Okay, pretty clever actually. And they still do that. And so I had this dog, a collie, lovely collie, little brown and white, lovely thing. And I can't remember her name now. This is 30 years ago. And she came to me, and the owner was saying, we'll call her Molly, saying Molly's great. She's healthy. She's happy. She's great in every way, except she's terrified of guns. And I said, well, I was fairly young. Well, you live in Southampton. There's probably not a lot of guns around there. She said, well, actually, the 1 o'clock gun every
Oh,
day. Yeah. And so she said, day, every day, the dog would be absolutely terrified for a couple of hours after the 1 o'clock gun. It's like, oh my God, the 1 o'clock gun. Okay. And so
no.
one of my very early, probably within the first year of my homeopathic practice, I gave her some aconite.
Aconite,
And
of course.
aconite,
Yes.
it's an obvious prescription, but you got to start somewhere. So for people watching, everybody knows arnica. Yeah, arnica is the remedy for bruising. Okay, so aconite, if you like, is arnica for the mind. It's where there's been trauma to the mind. If you think of if you ever had a near death experience where you almost fell over the cliff, or you almost got hit by a juggernaut, or there's the ice almost cracked beneath your feet, where your life flashes in front of you. Have you ever had one of those experiences, Peter?
Oh, did I? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a. Oh my goodness, several. I don't want to
Okay, so
interrupt you in
you
your
have had
story,
it
but
where your life flashed in front of you. If
oh,
that's the case,
absolutely.
yeah, you were so panicked that you went, your whole life flashed in front of you. That's aconite. Okay, so if you've been in that degree of terror, yeah, as the juggernaut comes bowling down the road at you and you think you're going to get flattened, that's aconite. So I gave aconite to this dog. I saw the lady a couple of weeks later, and she said, miracle, dog is fine, dog is fine, boom boom boom.
Nice, huh?
And the dog is just, oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, okay, she'll listen, but she engages brain before she engages panic. And dog was fine. And it was such a simple example. I just thought, oh my God, look at that. That would take fluoxetine and diazepam and selegiline and and
Yes,
and
yes.
behavioral training for months and months
And
and months.
earplugs and
And
dark chamber and this and that. I,
and
I,
yeah,
I know. And this is the, I personally think that homeopathy is an amazing science, but it
yeah,
is kind of either ahead of its time or incomplete. Because I had a situation with about, I think that about 10 or 12 hyperthyroid cats, and I was able to reverse half of them by Natrium muriaticum, which is homeopathic remedy. And
yeah.
I measured the T4 levels, and I could determine to what degree the homeopathic remedy will work, and which is too high. If they got to the certain level of T4, then it wouldn't work, right? But there was measurable result, and I was always intrigued by the fact that more research is not done in areas of homeopathy, and I just think that it's just so complex and so incomplete and almost beyond our, like it is not this for that, right? Like sometimes it can be, but often it is not. And I'm wondering what is going to happen with homeopathy at the time of AI, because it would be actually an amazing discipline to just really analyze and start seeing and doing research, because it's one of the least expensive medical treatments. And
Yeah,
it does work, but it doesn't
yeah.
reliably work all the time because we have these gaps, right? And it is not
Wow.
a good business, right,
Yeah,
for big pharma. So do you have any dreams of, or kind of like almost like visions, utopia visions of what the
yeah.
medical system could look like, or maybe medical research could look like? Because right now, medical research is driven by profits and big pharma most
Mhm.
of the time. Do you have
Uh-huh.
any vision
Yeah,
that would kind of include research in areas that are not as profitable but can be really effective?
yeah. I think let's look at medicine first of all. So everyday veterinary medicine. I would love it that drugs are there. Drugs are very useful things. Yeah, you need them. If I break my leg, I want everything they've got. But I would like to see, and I probably won't see it in my lifetime, Peter. It would be that that drugs are reserved for very special occasions. Yeah, you have a tiny little cabinet at the back of the office, where you have maybe the strong opiate painkillers and maybe two
Yeah.
or three antibiotics and maybe one non-steroidal, and that's about it. And maybe whatever, yeah. But they're because they're very, very powerful. We discovered pharmaceuticals in a big way in like the 1930s, and then they just expanded enormously and displaced thousands of years of experience of
Mhm.
reading patients, reading the landscape, reading food, giving good nutrition, uh, acupuncture, chiropractic, osteopathy, all these things. And they've all been shifted out, and it's now 90% drugs. So I'd like to see it the other way, with just 10% for very special situations
Mhm.
with drugs, because I'm not anti drug. And then 90% would be, what can we do to make this patient better before we have to think about even going for the drugs? I'd love it if
Mhm.
vets came
The
along and
last
go,
resort. The
that's
last
right.
resort, right?
Or if a
Mhm.
vet they go home on a Friday night and say, "Oh, I used an antibiotic today." That would be
Yeah, yeah.
that
Well,
would
guess
be
what?
wouldn't
You
that be
know,
amazing?
I have this kind of vision, or almost like it's been nagging me for the
Oh,
longest time, maybe a couple of
yeah,
decades, that the
oh,
body, body is almost like the micro universe of the mega universe, and
yeah,
that the constellation is set. If the constellation, if there is health, the constellation is certain way, and
yeah,
our body is to reset the constellation. So my whole idea would be to actually just kind of reset the energy, almost like when your computer gets frozen, right? Like when your shoulder gets frozen, or your any organ, just resetting the energetic state of the body. That's what homeopathy probably does, right? And
yes,
having
yeah,
some sort of analysis of the body and say, okay, this is what the original constellation was, and now we're going to reset it. It's almost like rearranging the pieces of the puzzle again, right?
yeah.
And
I
so
mean,
I it
yeah.
would be so cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean that's if you go back to Hahnemannian constitutional prescribe, well, he didn't really constitute. It was Kent who came along and said constitutional prescribing. But basically, it's the constitutional prescribing is just saying there are certain kind of personality traits which
Characteristics.
fit
Yes.
very well with certain remedies, and regardless of what disease that character trait has, you can use this remedy to just reboot the
Hmm.
software of that person,
Hmm.
to just jig them back into line so that they heal themselves. Yeah. And the same with animals. You describing nature mure cats, but you can have for sulfur. I prescribed sulfur this morning for a
Hmm.
dog. It's just when you switch off your computer and then you switch it on and hope that the problem disappears. That to a certain extent is a bit like homeopathy, except you're putting something in. Yeah, you're not just switching off. Let's switch off the life support system and then switch it back on. We're not doing that. We're putting in a remedy to kind of help reshape the whole software within the body. If we and
Hmm.
our dogs were
Hmm.
computers, which we're not, we're a whole lot more complex than that.
Nick, what is the one thing you'd
Yeah,
want someone who is listening now do
yeah,
differently tomorrow, whether it's a dog parent, a
yeah,
pet parent, or a
yeah.
young veterinarian? What would you want them to do differently if they got up tomorrow after listening to this conversation?
Yeah, I would, if we want it just really, really simple, I would put a little piece of real food, just a small amount, just maybe 1-2% of the bowl as real food. So just a piece of real lightly cooked chicken, real lightly cooked salmon,
Salmon?
real lightly cooked rabbit, real lightly cooked. Yeah, take your pick. Just be careful with wheat, beef, and chicken. I did say chicken just now because it's so easy. But if I had to choose one meat, I would go with something like venison, or maybe
Yeah, yeah. Right on. I was
next.
I was
Yeah,
just thinking
venison.
the same
There you
thing.
go. So next time you're at the raw store, treat yourself or your dog or your cat. Yeah, because cats will go for this as well. What get just a tiny little pack of
Hmm.
and look at the back, and it needs to be a single ingredient, and it should say 100% venison. Full stop. Yeah, no colorants, no additives, no
No wood
glycerol,
chips.
no
Like
preservatives.
I would prefer wood chips. A little bit of wood chips. What do you think?
Oh,
Cellulose,
listen,
powdered
don't say that
cellulose.
because it confuses the message, dude. Shut up. Shut up. Okay, so it's got one ingredient, guys. Don't listen to him. So it's got venison. It's basically they take bits of dried deer and they bits of deer. They dry it and put it in a pack, and you buy it from the thing. It's got to be fresh. It's got to be good. If it's organic, even better. But just that's it. And just try that. That's even easier than getting a little bit of salmon or a little bit of something from your plate, and it's actually arguably safer. So a little bit of single dried venison, give a tiny little bit to the dog, to the cat, and
Mhm,
what have you. And if
mhm.
that works, great. Then the next day you can give 2 or 3 bits, and that might be the beginning of your
Mhm.
real raw or fresh food journey. And it's exciting.
Transformation,
If you're
right?
feeding ultra processed kibble or cans, when was the last time you got excited about feeding your dog? Okay, forget it. Welcome to the real world of just feeling joyous
Uh-huh.
about
Oh my
making,
goodness.
buying, feeding your dog, and the look on their face when the dog or the cat looks at you and goes, "Oh my God, this is for me." Yes, thank you so much. They literally will say that to you. So there you
Oh,
go.
absolutely. And I'm so glad that you're saying that. And I really like the fact that you've been kind of recommending to do just
Tiny.
start with small, tiny amount. It's
Yeah.
like with exercise, right? Like you go one flight of stairs and then two flights the next
Yeah.
day and so on and so on. There's
Yeah.
this flight of steps in a park in the canyon nearby our home here.
Yeah.
And it's like there's like 200 steps and they're super steep, and so I decided to run them up, right? So the first day I went like half of the, like 100, and then my legs became basically rock, like I couldn't move them anymore.
Yeah.
And in the last 2 weeks I've been able to get to the top without,
Wow.
still not really graciously,
Yeah.
uh, but I'm getting to the top and running it. I go, wow, it takes only 2 weeks for us to make the difference. So everyone who's listening, if you're not feeding fresh natural food or cooked natural food, Dr. Nick just gave you a really good idea. And yeah, it's great. I love it. Now, Nick, we
Yeah.
have conversation cards here. And if you
Okay.
thought that we'll get away from those today, we won't, because uh, my homeopath, her name is Susan Gimbel. She's amazing.
Yeah.
She kind of, after 20 years of seeing her, she says, Peter, you like every time conversation happens, you're happy. Every time conversation breaks down, you're unhappy. And it is really true. And, we've
Yeah.
tried different remedies and so on. I got remedy of dolphin's milk in the past because I do really love to be in the pack of people and just kind of
Yeah.
play and fish in a way,
Yeah.
and rescue others, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes. But communication and conversation is really something that I really enjoy, and I so appreciate you being here today
Oh, it's
because
great. I've loved it.
we it hasn't been long. It's been only a year since we met, and I feel like I've known you for much longer. So it's really cool. So I
I
hope you don't
agree.
mind that we'll
Yeah. And we're going to be meeting in South Africa. We're all going to
absolutely. Yes,
the African
yes.
Pet Health Summit in September in Cape Town, and so really looking forward to that. It's Judy Morgan will be there, and
Dr. Barbara Royal
Dr.
and
Barbara Royal and
yes, and you,
Rita
Rita.
Hogan is going to be
Yes.
there. So it's actually a really international pact. And the great thing about it, guys, and I'm not getting paid to say this, once you get there, the exchange rate is so poor for the South Africans. It's so good for us that you can live very cheaply when you get there. So hotels and food and all that stuff is pretty cheap when you get there. I very much recommend it.
If you want to meet Dr. Nick in person, come and see us in South Africa, and I'll
Yeah,
be there too, and
yeah,
everyone else. And
it'd be
the
great.
organizers are amazing, generous, kind people who really care about the mission and raw food feeding
Yeah,
and healthy medicine, as opposed to
yeah,
just the same old. So, are
yeah.
you ready for the cards? I'll have I'll usually what I do. This is a new set, by the way. I have no idea what is in them. I
Okay,
haven't
thank
been able
you.
to read them. So
Okay,
you can go left, right, inner, outer. That's probably the easiest. And I'm just going to
left inner.
left, inner. Okay, this
Yeah,
is my left. If it's
just
if
be
it's
a quiet rebel.
how will you control your own greed?
How do I
That's it.
control my own greed?
Own greed, yeah.
Wow. How do I? Okay, okay. This is this. Okay, because last time we came on, and I personally was kind of thrown by the but by having these kind of questions when I thought we were going to do a veterinary thing. However, we've just had a chat about Galileo and about history and sociology and all sorts of things. So I'm kind of warmed up now. How do I control my own greed? Okay, so I'm not particularly greedy, but I tell you what I've recently discovered is dried prunes. Okay, just of an evening, I will sit and I will eat half a pack of prunes. Okay, and because I used to be, I gave up smoking last year. I only smoked a tiny bit, but I gave up, and so I kind of got a bit of a sweet tooth and was eating a bit too much chocolate. But then, without really thinking about it, I kind of weaned onto dates. Dates as a gateway dried fruit, and then from dates, because they're really pretty sweet, I've just drifted onto dried prunes, and now nothing makes me happier than sitting with the family or watching some trashy American. I'm watching The Rookie at the moment on Amazon Prime, and I'm absolutely loving it. There you go. And I'm binging that, and it's really lovely. All these, yeah. Here's all my downsides, guys. So what I love is a slightly unripe banana and maybe a dozen dried prunes and The Rookie. 2 episodes of The Rookie, and then I go to bed early because I'm having to wake up these days at 4 a.m. in order to write my book. That is so
4 a.m. Oh my
4 a.m.
goodness.
to write the book. Yeah.
Uh,
So
in
that is, yeah. So uh, yeah. Am I greedy? Yeah, I'm absolutely. I think I'm more obsessive than I am greedy, and I'm obsessed with the book, and I'm pretty obsessed with Substack.
so a greedy reader as well. You
Oh
know, I
yeah, yeah,
I promise my the people that I hang out with here at
mm,
Get to Know Your Vet that I'll answer all those questions too. And
yeah,
I, I'm having a hard time as a person who comes from European background. I'm having a
yeah,
really hard time with people. When in North America, when you go to a restaurant, often people just kind of split the bills and count who had drink and who didn't have a drink and so on. So my way of controlling my greed is that I decided not to score keep when it comes to dinners and meals and so on. And I decided I just automatically will assume that I'm going to pay for my friend's dinner because I like that.
I
And
agree. Yeah,
and this is something that kind of helps me control my own greed, right? Like just kind of sharing or just not really sweating the little things and just kind
yeah,
of like do my best to contribute or give you another thing, right? Like I don't know, there's a colleague who would ask me to do something, record a course segment or something like that.
yeah.
And they would tell me, hey, I'm going to pay this much and this much. And I say, hey, why don't we just go for a meal and I'll just do that happily because, so this is a way it doesn't always come natural for us to be that way, but I really consciously try not to score keep when it comes to stuff like that, right? And
Yeah,
so,
yeah, yeah. No, that's really wise. It drives me crazy when people, and it's not wrong, it just doesn't fit with me, where people divide up the bill saying, "Oh, you had two drinks and you had one, but I had ice cream and you no, no, no.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah. Let's not go there. Let's not do that in South Africa."
we won't. Don't worry. But I also understand that, you know, I think that people should not expect that they'll be paid for.
No.
And it's okay to split up the bills, but you know,
Yeah,
nickel and dime on everything.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think that it's not okay for us to expect that other people will pay. But there's also
I
a limit,
agree.
I think,
Yeah.
when I don't really like unfulfilled promises. That's actually one thing. And people say, hey, you know, I stayed in your place for 2 weeks and I'm going to take you out. And they never do. Then I go, maybe you shouldn't be staying in my place for
Yeah,
free.
that's karma. I think that's karma. I used to have a problem with that, but now I think that it will all come out in the wash, those things.
Eventually,
Also,
right? Like it's like, yeah, exactly.
yeah, and if you've got people like that you know are going to be like that, that they're just going to take. I tend to kind of drift away from those people because
Mm,
they're not on the same wavelength as me. I will give,
mm,
give, and if all you do is take, then I'm going to move away from you
mm.
respectfully, but I'm going to shift. Yeah.
And it's not
Um,
just material things, right? It's also the ability to listen or help
yeah.
or like, you know, anything, any of that. So we have more cards. How many
Okay.
would you like to go for more? I don't even know how much time you have.
I'm going to shoot in maybe 10 minutes, but I'm
Okay, well,
intrigued to see what else you can come out with. So because I like, yeah, we were on Raw Pet Medics with Dr. Connor Brady and Dr. Brendan Clark. We do this Raw Pet Medics things. You can find us on Facebook, la 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 la. But Connor is the research guy. He'll go, "Oh my God, there's a paper on that, and there we had three dogs in Czechoslovakia, and they used this supplement and what have you." He's got a brain for thing. Brendan is on the other hand. He's got a massive brain for clinical detail and what have you. Genius
yes.
guy. Whereas me, I'm the kind of the generalist, and I'll go, "Oh, that's interesting. Did you know Max Planck was really interested in that? Or did you know that Newton invented the cat flap?" And
Yes.
or yeah, I'm the guy who kind of the big thinker, if you like. So this is big thinking chat. So I really like it. Actually, yeah, it suits me
And
really
by the
well.
way, I really enjoyed hanging out with you three
Yeah,
because you guys are, yeah, we're like a triple trouble for sure.
oh, it's
But
hilarious. Yeah. So yeah, more of that
I like to
in.
be the caboose in that group because, you know, I
Yeah.
obviously joined you much later last year, but I always love hanging out with you.
Yeah,
So
it's gonna South
either
Africa's gonna be great.
I am sure it will be. I can't wait. Um, left, right, inner, outer.
Okay, same again. Left, inner.
Left, inner.
Yeah.
Wow, look at you.
Uh, just to
Huh. Can you describe what winning means to you?
I think I had this last time. Or maybe the
No, it's
opposite.
actually a completely different stack. No, I think that it's a
Uh,
deja vu.
what is winning? Okay, that's really interesting because I've had a pretty major change in the last year in my life. So I tell you what winning is for me. Winning is getting up at 4 and indulging myself in just thinking about my book, absolutely selfishly, with no other distractions, and just indulging myself with my thoughts, and then it's winning is getting up and taking my dogs for a walk as the sun. This sounds all very laudable, but I don't care. This is what turns me on. Okay, then taking
Yeah.
my three dogs for a walk as the sun rises on the hill just over here and seeing the sunrise, and it's not too cold and it's not freezing to death, and being out there and feeling the wind, and that is winning. And then I come home, I make some tea for my wife and give it to her, and I see that she's really pleased by such a simple thing. That is a win. I see my children get up and kind of they're teenagers, so they kind of grumpily come into the kitchen. That is a win. That is a win for me. And then if I most of my clients are just really fabulous. They come to me because they they're for a reason, and I have a back and forth. I learn from them, and if I have a morning like that, which is most mornings, that is a win for me. And then if I have a delicious, simple lunch, standing at the counter in the kitchen with Ellie by my side. You shouldn't eat standing up, by the way, guys, but that's what I do. Then that's great. And then one of the biggest wins is I'll have a snooze for 30 to 60 minutes after lunch because I got up at 4. And then I can start the day all over again at like 3 o'clock. That is a win. I could give you lots more detail, but there you go. That's a win for me.
That's really cool. That's really cool. And I'm inspired by the 4 a.m.
It's
wake up.
very, very cool. I read a book called The 5 a.m. or the 5 o'clock club, the
AM
5
club. Yeah,
a.m.
yeah,
club.
yeah, yeah. What
It's
time do
well
you go
worth
to
it.
bed? What
I
time
like
do you go
10,
to bed?
like maybe 10 o'clock.
Oh wow, wow.
Yeah,
So
so 10 o'clock.
as soon as I hit less than 7 hours of sleep, I'm miserable. Uh, Maybe 5 a.m. would be good for me. Maybe I can. Can
You
I
should
get up
try.
at
Yeah,
5 a.m.? Is it
5 a.m.
okay?
is good. You've got to get up at 5 too, so that you see 5 a.m. Yeah, that's what I do.
I have this strange anti-competition kind of like attitude, and I don't even know where it comes from. But when it comes to winning, I always think if I win, someone else is gonna lose, right? So if you have an argument with someone, like I like to kind of come to some sort of consensus, maybe agree to disagree, but not necessarily
Yeah,
have one winner or one loser because
yeah,
it's like that. But there's so if a group, let's say a group of veterinarians who promote natural diet, win over the pet food industry, I would consider that a win that is really worth celebrating because it's more like truth is winning. So if wins, that's
mm,
amazing. But
yeah,
I have one win, and it's probably the most profound kind of professional achievement.
yeah,
My dog Pax, who we met
yeah,
in Mallorca at the
yeah,
conference, and
yeah.
he was lame for 2+ years, 2.5 years, as a result of
Okay,
his hormone deficiency.
yeah,
And I could not, for 2.5 years, I could not solve the problem. And when I finally started him on HRT as a result of frantic search for a solution and open mind, he
yeah,
recovered fully. And
yeah,
now I'm able to share that knowledge with others. And that's been really the most profound experience because not
yeah,
only I've been able to help him and I see him every day
yeah,
happy and running at the beach or in the park or in the
yeah,
forest, but also knowing that I can now actually confidently say that we've missed something that is important and that now we have it and now we can make a difference. Kind of crazy. I really can't even think of anything else that would make me more happy. And so
yeah.
that's a big win, I think.
That's
And you're just
amazing.
being,
Yeah,
yeah. And it's I stumbled upon it. I didn't do the research, but I think that you and I kind of sense that we are in agreement that when we have an open mind, that we can actually achieve much more, right? And go
yeah,
the route of least regret.
yeah. I think they say the mind is like a parachute. If it's not open, it won't work. But at the same time, if your mind is too open, be careful of having too open a mind because your brain might fall out. Yeah.
Explode.
So there's two extremes. So have an
Yeah,
open mind, but yeah, you don't absorb everything you possibly read on the internet. Be
that
discreet.
is
Have
true.
some
That is
discretion. Yeah.
having good filters, right? Having good filters as well, and practice the filters. What comes in and also what comes out often. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
important.
I think so. Yeah. It's yeah. But where? How do you develop filters? You develop filters by reading trusted books, speaking to trusted individuals, and it takes experience. Yeah, you've got to make a lot of mistakes before you
Hmm.
you find a certain way that that works. How many different therapeutics did you try with Pax for his lameness? Probably everything until
Oh
you
yeah,
found
everything,
that.
everything in the and more. And
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
so interesting because I was asking my colleague who became a sports medicine specialist to see him, and he was busy and didn't have time for 3 months. So I was just so desperate that I started digging around, and I didn't know that that kind of like postponement of the appointment was actually the best thing that could happen, right?
yeah,
And so sometimes we don't know what the bad things are good for in a way, or
yeah.
perceivingly bad things. And so, yeah, it's really cool. Do we have time for one more card? I
Yeah, let's
think.
do one more because this is very
Okay, okay,
yeah,
okay.
I
And I,
yeah,
I so appreciate the conversation. I think conversations are also super important in keeping our mind open and
agreed.
and getting into the world of other people and in the thought process of other people really is enlightening. So thank you,
Yeah, I
my
think
friend.
singing, talking, and dancing is very important from a tribal point of view. Yeah, humans form tribes, dogs form
Yeah.
packs, but it's essentially the same thing. You've got to work with other people, yeah, and you've got to find your place within that, and find your individuality within that pack as well. I think it's really important.
Speaking of the pack,
Yeah,
where can
yeah.
people find you? Where can they join your pack?
Okay, I think the easiest one is right. Oh no! Oh, here you go. At Holistic Vet UK, yeah, on Substack. If you look for that right there, or you look for Nick Thompson Vet on Substack, then you'll get all the information you need. All the links and things are there, and you'll get my brain wanderings. I post one, two, three times every week, and my brain goes in a lot of strange places. And you're very welcome to come along and comment and help me on that journey. Tell me what you want us to look at. Let's look at morphic resonance, for example. That's one of the ones. If I had time, I'd do it. But I'm writing a book and I'm trying to,
Let's do that.
Okay.
For those of you who would like to learn about hormone health for dogs, you can just go to hormonehealthfordogs.org, where Dr. Karen Becker and I have recorded some sessions on hormone replacement therapy, hormone sparing sterilization. We have tons of guests, and this effort is going to continue until we switch from conventional spay and neuter to more hormone sparing spays and neuters, and
Yeah.
understand how beneficial it is. And if you would like to join our channel here, please do so. Just click the follow button, and you can find me at drpetertobias.com. But we have one more card here, so let's do it. You're gonna say left and inner again, right?
I am. I am just to because I bet people will normally go, oh, in or out, and this kind of thing. So just to be a little bit different, I'm going to
Wow.
do exactly the
So
same
this
every
is
time.
this is actually, we can't really fake this, right? Like we have to answer all the questions, and I'm not going to
Okay.
exclude myself. But
Okay.
where were you when you
Yeah.
felt most vulnerable, and why?
Okay. Yeah, I've got this. Because last time we had this conversation with Connor and Brendan, I was totally unprepared for these. Not that I've been thinking about it, but I'm just in a much better space than I was even last year, you know? So, and I'm okay with my vulnerability. I have hidden my vulnerability by being professional and being trying to be as rigorous and be the man, be the father, be the all that. Anyway, um, I'll tell you when I felt most vulnerable was when Arthur was born. So here's what we did. Okay, so that is nearly 14 years ago. We had a home birth because if you look at the stats, they're safer for a non-complicated pregnancy. You're safer at home than you are in a hospital. Plus, I am a quiet rebel, and so I didn't want us to go to hospital for a natural process. So we decided to have them at home, and we had the two lovely um, midwives came along. maybe a couple of hours before Arthur arrived. He was born at 10:37 p.m. in the house we were in before this one, and he was born in the middle of the living room, and a few hours before, Ellie and I were playing Scrabble. Yeah, so at maybe 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we were playing Scrabble, and she beat me. She's a demon Scrabble player. Is my wife. Okay,
She's lovely, by the way.
she's great.
She's
She's
lovely.
absolutely
Say
great,
hi
and
to
she
her.
don't play her at Scrabble because she's clever with tiny little words. Anyway, and then just a few hours later, this is her first birth. No drugs, no TENS machines, no gas, no nothing. She just went into this animal state, and and we were just relying on her, on Arthur, and on the midwives. And I'm usually in medical situations. I've birthed 1,000 calves, 1,000 piglets, a
Mm,
thousand puppies, a
mm,
thousand kittens. You name it, I've been there. I kind of know how this game is played. And on this,
mm.
I was absolutely clueless. And it was the most precious thing. My wife with this very new precious thing, Arthur, coming out, and that's when I felt most vulnerable. Was that the question? The most vulnerable? Yeah, I was
I think so.
terrified
And
because
why? Why?
why? Because I wasn't in control. Yeah, it's like
Mm.
if I'm doing a cesarean section on a cow, I'm in control. The farmer's got the head. The I don't know, the farm boy is going to make sure that I don't get swished with the tail, and I know what I'm doing. Yeah, you open them up. You know where the uterus is. You know which blade to use. You know which suture to use. The calf is usually in similar sort of place, and you can hoik them out. You know what's going to happen. Yeah, and you've got your homeopathics, and if you're necessary, you've got your drugs, and so
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
known quantities. Whereas with this, my wife could have died. There is a slim but possibility, and that would be unbearable. And my son could have drowned, a
Yeah,
cord
yeah,
around the neck, or
yeah,
hideous,
yeah,
terrible things. So
yeah.
that was when I felt most vulnerable. I could give you 20 more, but that was the one that came to mind. So I'm going to share
Yeah,
that with.
there are so many situations, right? But I thank you so much for sharing. I can totally understand.
Yeah,
Um, I felt most vulnerable. I'm not sure whether I shared this with you, but I'm a
yeah.
sleepwalker. I've had night terrors since I
You
was like
did. No, but
four or
share it
five.
with the guys.
So
Yeah,
the most vulnerable I felt was when it was between the second and third year of vet school. I
yeah.
just finished my exam period and I was
Anxiety.
super
Yeah,
tired and
yeah,
stressed. And
yeah,
I was at home at my mom's place
yeah,
and I had a night terror and I basically ran through glass door and I cut one of the arteries of my femoral artery, one of the branch arteries. And
wow.
I basically lost about 3 liters, which is like three-quarters of a gallon of blood.
Bloody
And
hell.
I remember just basically waking up barely in the hall in a pool of blood. And then the curtain kind of was dropping
Yeah,
and everyone was freaking out. And there was absolutely nothing I could do. And I only remember they kind of, the ambulance came and they carried me in the elevator and then I blacked out. And so that's when I really like, I could do absolutely nothing.
wow.
And there were other moments like I had different accidents and all that, but this was
Mm,
probably the most powerful moment where like, you turn from a capable human being who can move and so on into being completely reliant on
yeah.
others and the help of others. And they did an amazing job because I could have been gone, right? So we wouldn't have been sitting here having
Yeah.
this
Did
chat.
you see the light at the end of the tunnel? And did you
No, I
have that end
didn't
of life
actually, but
thing?
I think that it would definitely not be a bad way to go because it was more like going under anesthesia. If you've ever been under anesthesia, it's like you just basically
Yeah,
black out and that's it,
yeah,
right? And then I
yeah.
woke up the next day at the ICU, but I still have scars all over my body. It was kind of interesting.
Wow.
Which brings us,
Wow. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. broken
But
glass and
but
loads of blood.
but even with that, there's glass half full because I have a dog that is certified for my sleepwalking and trained for my sleepwalking.
Oh,
And not
okay.
only that, he looks after me to make sure I wake up the next morning,
Yeah.
but he also can fly with me and travel.
Yeah.
So, you know, the universe kind of has it all planned on some level, right?
Yeah. I think that's you were saying earlier about how things change and kind of disappointments. Oh yeah, you were saying about you couldn't talk to a great guru in physiotherapy or something, but that turned out to be a good thing because it made you look at the hormones.
Yes,
I
yes,
think
yes, yeah.
sometimes disappointments, yeah, when life doesn't go quite the way you think it's going to go, don't throw all your toys out of the pram because sometimes that can be a blessing in disguise. I've had that on several
Absolutely.
occasions in my life. You know, when I'm thinking, I know this is going to happen, then it doesn't, and I think, oh no, this is an absolute disaster. But then, actually, from directly from that event, something good comes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find it fascinating just recently, and I know that we have to go, but I just want to
Hmm.
share one more thing, and then I'll let
Yeah.
you make the final closing statements.
Okay.
I just recently recorded a message on my phone.
Yeah.
I haven't and didn't send it to my ex,
Yeah.
and it was a thank you message for dumping me. Because if I wasn't dumped, my life would be completely different and not in a good way.
Wow.
So once again, but what is the last thing you would like to tell our listeners and viewers?
I'm going to say, and it's totally unprompted because we didn't script this at all. I'm going to say,
No, not at
believe in
all.
yourself. Believe in yourself. Do your homework and believe in yourself. Find people you trust. Find a vet you trust. Find an osteopath, chiropractor that you trust, acupuncturist that you trust, and believe your instincts and work with your dogs, your cats, and believe what they say. Learn to interpret. It is genuine. They will talk to you if you have the eyes and the ears to listen. Yeah, believe in yourself, which sounds really wishy washy, but actually, it's a pretty big thing to say. Go with it. Believe in yourself.
Beautiful, beautiful. Nick, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh,
I've had a fantastic time as always,
it's been really
and I
fun.
look forward to hanging out again.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here
No,
and your time.
Peter, it's great. Listen, keep up the great work. You're doing just fabulous work. I look forward to seeing you and Judy and Rita and Brendan and everybody in South Africa in September. And yeah, uh, keep up the good work. Do your reading. Enjoy your cats and your dogs. It's life is short. Enjoy.
Life is short. And for those of you who are thinking about going to South Africa, we're going to put a link in the description of this video. So just make sure that you check it out. We're going to be there. Take care and bye, Nick. Have a good night.
Great to see you, Peter.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye
Bye bye.
bye.